The wind howled across the endless scrap fields, carrying with it the sharp smell of rust and burned oil, mountains of broken machines, old ships, and twisted metal stretched as far as the eye could see. In this wasteland walked a human scavenger named Cain. His armor was old and scratched, his hands rough from years of digging through garbage left behind by wars and traders. Every day was the same search for something useful, sell it for food, and hope tomorrow would not be worse. But that day was different. Cain moved deeper into the dump, where the shadows grew long and the silence felt heavier. He stopped when he heard a sound, not the groan of metal or the screech of rusted joints, but something soft, something human-like. It was crying. He followed the sound between the tall piles of junk. His boots crunched over broken glass and wire until he reached an open patch. There, huddled between two massive gears, was a figure. It was a girl, but not human. Her skin was pale violet, glowing faintly under the dusty sun. Her hair, long and silver, clung to her dirty face. Torn rags covered her thin body, and her knees were pulled close to her chest as if she was trying to disappear. Her shoulders shook with every sob. Cain froze. He had seen aliens before, traders, soldiers, refugees, but never one like this. She looked too young, too fragile to be alone in a place like this. The girl lifted her head when she noticed him. Her eyes were wide and bright, shining like liquid silver. Fear filled them at first, but when she saw Cain's shadow fall over her, she whispered with a trembling voice, "Please, don't leave me here." Cain's heart tightened. He should have walked away. It was not safe to take in strangers, especially not aliens. He had enough trouble surviving alone. But something about her voice, weak yet desperate, pulled him closer. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low but firm. The girl wiped her tears with her dirty hands. "They threw me away," she said. "Light broken scrap." Her words struck him like a blade. Cain looked around. The dump was silent, but he felt eyes on him, the kind of silence that hides danger. He crouched down slowly, studying her. She had bruises on her arms, a cut across her leg. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. He knew she would not survive another night out here. "What's your name?" Cain asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra." "Cain," he said simply. He extended his hand. "Come on, Lyra. You can't stay here." For a moment, she only stared at his hand, as if it were something strange. Then, with trembling fingers, she reached out. Her small violet hand slipped into his rough, gloved one. He pulled her gently to her feet. The moment their hands touched, something shifted. Cain felt how cold she was, how fragile. But there was something else, too, a faint glow under her skin that pulsed for a second before fading. He almost pulled back, but she held on tightly. Behind them, a piece of metal fell with a loud crash. Cain's instincts kicked in. He turned quickly, hand moving to the knife at his belt. The piles of scrap loomed tall, shadows dancing across them. "Someone's here," Cain muttered under his breath. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. She gripped his arm, whispering urgently, "Please, don't let them take me back." Cain narrowed his eyes. He did not know who they were, but the fear in her voice told him enough. Whoever had left her here was not finished with her. He pulled her close, keeping her behind him. His sharp eyes scanned the horizon. He could not see anyone, but he could feel it. The dump was not empty. The wind carried a metallic creak, then silence again. Cain's grip on his knife tightened. He knew they had to leave before the watchers revealed themselves. "Stay close to me," he told her firmly. She nodded quickly, her silver hair falling into her face together. They began to move through the narrow paths between the piles of broken ships and machines. Every sound felt louder now, the crunch of their boots, the soft clang of loose parts falling, the quiet breath of the girl behind him. Lyra looked around nervously. "They'll come for me," she whispered. "They always do." Cain didn't answer, but inside he made a decision. He had found her in the dump, broken and abandoned. and he would not let anyone treat her like trash again. Still, one question burned in his mind as they moved toward the safety of his home. Who would throw away a living child? And why did they want her back so badly? The answers, Cain knew, would not be simple. And as the sun sank behind the jagged metal mountains, he felt that taking her hand had just changed his life forever. Cain's shelter was not much, but in the middle of the endless scrap dump, it was the only place that could be called safe. He had built it himself out of old ship panels, rusted walls, and patched wiring. To outsiders, it looked like just another pile of junk. But inside, it was warm, with working lights, a fire pit for cooking, and a bed made from stitched fabric. When Cain pushed the heavy door shut behind them, the girl, Lara, looked around with wide eyes. She touched the walls carefully, as if she could not believe such a place existed in the middle of ruins. "You live here?" she asked softly. Cain nodded. "It keeps me alive." Her silver eyes sparkled faintly in the light. "It feels safe." Cain studied her. She was still shaking from the cold, dirt clinging to her violet skin. He went to a trunk, pulled out a blanket, and handed it to her. "Here." Lyra took it carefully, wrapping herself in the rough cloth as if it were treasure. A small smile formed on her face. It was the first time he had seen her smile, and for a moment Cain felt something stir inside him. "You'll stay here tonight," Cain said. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do." But Lyra shook her head quickly. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They always find me," Cain frowned. "Who?" She lowered her gaze, clutching the blanket tighter. "The ones who made me." Cain froze. The words echoed in his mind. Made her? What did that mean? He wanted to ask more, but he saw the fear trembling through her body. She wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Instead, he cooked something simple: dried meat and grain stew. The smell filled the shelter, and Lyra's eyes followed every movement with hungry attention. When he placed the bowl in front of her, she stared at it like it was the most amazing thing in the universe. "Eat," Cain said. She nodded, her hands trembling as she lifted the spoon. The first bite made her eyes water. She ate quickly, too quickly. Cain gently slowed her down. "Easy. You'll choke." Lyra nodded, swallowing hard. I never had food like this." The words hit Cain like a knife. What kind of people would starve a child, then throw her away like garbage? His fists clenched, but he stayed calm. She didn't need his anger. She needed safety. When she finished, she leaned back, exhausted but no longer shaking. Her silver eyes looked softer now, filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Cain sat across from her, silent. He wasn't used to anyone in his home. He wasn't used to thanks either. For years, his life had been nothing but survival, trade, and silence. But now, this strange alien girl was here, changing everything outside. The wind howled. The scrap piles groaned as if alive. Cain's instincts remained sharp. He knew someone had been watching earlier. The danger was not gone, only hidden later that night. As Cain checked his old rifle and set up the sensor traps around the shelter, he heard a sound behind him. Lyra stood there, barefoot, holding the blanket around her shoulders. "Can't sleep?" Cain asked. She shook her head. "It's too quiet. Out there, I could always hear them. The ones who hunt me." Cain's eyes narrowed. "What do they want with you?" For a long moment, she was silent. Then she whispered, "I was not born. I was built. They said I was a failure. They said I was too soft, too weak." Cain felt the cold run through him. His suspicions were true. She wasn't just any alien. She was something else. Something made. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears again. They wanted a weapon, not me. Cain took a slow breath. He wanted answers. But he could see how much pain each word caused her. Instead, he put a hand on the doorframe and spoke calmly. "You're safe here, as long as you're with me. No one's taking you back." Her gaze locked on him. Hope flickered in her silver eyes, fragile but alive. That night, She finally slept, curled up on the blanket bed. For the first time in years, Kane stayed awake longer, watching the sensors and the shadows outside. He didn't know why he cared so much for her, but the thought of anyone dragging her back into the darkness filled him with rage. The next morning, Lyra woke to the smell of warm bread. Kane handed her a piece. She smiled shyly. "You're kind," Kane grunted. "I'm careful." There's a difference, but her words stayed in his mind. Kind, it had been a long time since anyone called him that. As the day went on, Kane began to notice things about her. She was curious about everything tools, lights, even the smallest gadgets he kept. She touched them gently, asking quiet questions in her soft voice. But when her hand brushed against an old power cell, her skin glowed faintly again. The strange markings on her arms lit up for only a second before fading. Kane stared. What was that? Lyra froze, quickly pulling the sleeve down. "Nothing, Lyra," Kane said firmly. "That was not nothing." She looked down, her voice trembling. "It's part of what they did to me. I don't understand it." Kane felt his jaw tighten. Whoever had created her had left marks deep in her body. Marks she didn't even understand herself. Before he could say more, one of his traps beeped softly. A red light blinked. Kane stiffened. That meant movement outside. He grabbed his rifle, motioning for Lyra to stay low. She obeyed instantly, curling up behind the table, her silver eyes wide with fear. Kane moved to the small crack in the wall and looked out. Between the piles of scrap, he saw shadows, 3 figures moving slowly, dressed in dark armor, scanning the ground with strange devices. His breath grew sharp. They were searching, and he knew exactly who they were looking for. "They found us," Kane whispered under his breath. Lyra looked at him, her voice breaking. "Please, Kane, don't let them take me." Kane's grip on the rifle tightened. He had taken her in, given her food, and promised her safety. He would not break that promise. No matter who came for her, the 3 armored figures moved like hunters through the piles of junk. Their dark helmets reflected the faint light, and their scanners beeped with every step. They were searching carefully, patiently, like predators circling prey inside the shelter. Kane's jaw tightened as he watched them through the crack in the wall. He lowered the rifle and turned to Lyra, who was still hiding behind the table, her silver eyes wide with fear. "They're here for you," Kane said in a low, steady voice. Lyra shook her head quickly. No, please, Kane. Don't let them take me." Her voice cracked as if she was reliving something she had run from many times before. Kane crouched beside her, his hand firm on her shoulder. "Listen to me. They won't get you. Not while I'm breathing." Her eyes searched his face, looking for even a small crack of doubt. But Kane's voice was steady like iron. Slowly, she nodded, though her trembling hands betrayed her fear. Kane motioned for her to stay hidden, then moved to his storage chest. He pulled out a small bag, quickly stuffing it with food, water, and a few tools. He knew the shelter was no longer safe. "Once hunters found your trail, they never stopped," Lyra whispered. "Where will we go?" Kane checked his rifle. "Away from here, somewhere they can't track you." She clutched the blanket around her shoulders. "They always track me," she said bitterly. "They built me with marks, signals, so they can find me anywhere." Kane froze, staring at her. "Signals?" She nodded, slowly pulling back her sleeve. Her violet skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, glowing lines crisscrossing her arm like veins of silver fire. The glow pulsed softly, almost alive. "They said it was power," she whispered. "But really, it's chains." Kane's mind raced. She wasn't just a runaway, she was something created, something controlled, a weapon that had chosen not to fight. And for that choice, she had been thrown away. "Can you stop the glow?" Kane asked. Lyra shook her head. "I try, but it always comes back. It's part of me." Kane cursed under his breath. That meant they could track her no matter where she went. He rubbed his jaw, his mind searching for a solution. Then a crash shook the shelter, One of the armored figures had slammed into the wall. Testing its strength, dust rained down. The sound of heavy boots echoed outside. "They found us," Kane muttered. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her toward a hatch, hidden under the floor. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Tunnel," Kane replied. "I built it for emergencies. Looks like today is one." He pushed the hatch open, revealing a narrow passage lined with old pipes. The air smelled of oil and damp earth. He motioned for her to climb in. Lyra hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you," Kane promised. "Now go." She crawled into the darkness. Clutching the blanket, Kane followed, closing the hatch just as the door to the shelter burst open. The sound of armored footsteps filled the room above them. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to move slowly on hands and knees. Lyra's breath came fast, echoing in the narrow space. Kane kept one hand on his rifle, the other pushing her forward. Above, muffled voices spoke in a language Kane didn't fully know, but the tone was clear cold, commanding, hunting. "They'll keep coming," Lyra whispered. "They always do." "Then we keep running," Kane replied, his voice hard. "And if they catch us, I'll fight." For the first time, she looked at him with something stronger than fear-trust. After what felt like hours, they reached the end of the tunnel. Kane pushed open a hatch, hidden beneath a pile of metal plates. They emerged into the deeper part of the scrap dump, where rusted ship hulks leaned against each other like ancient skeletons. The air was colder here, the shadows thicker. Kane helped Lyra out, scanning the area. No sign of the hunters yet, but he knew they were close. They moved quickly between the ruins, Kane leading, Lyra close behind. Her glowing marks flickered faintly, barely visible, but Kane noticed how she tried to cover them with the blanket, ashamed of the light. Finally, when they reached the base of a giant broken engine, Kane stopped, catching his breath. Lyra leaned against the metal, her face pale. "You need to rest," Kane said. She shook her head. "No, we can't stop. They'll catch us." Kane crouched in front of her. "Then tell me, Lyra. Tell me what they made you for. I need to know what I'm protecting." Her lips trembled for a long moment. She was silent. Then she spoke, her voice low, almost afraid of the words themselves. "They made me to kill." Kane's stomach turned cold. "I was supposed to be a living weapon," Lyra continued. "They changed my body, filled me with energy, with codes I don't even understand. They told me I was perfect. Until I refused. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't hurt anyone." Her silver eyes filled with tears. "So they called me a failure and threw me away." Kane's jaw clenched. His mind flashed to the soldiers outside, hunting her not because she was dangerous, but because she was free, because she had chosen not to obey. "They're not taking you," Kane said firmly. "Not now, not ever." Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Kane looked at her for a long time. His face was scarred, hardened by years of survival, but his voice was steady. "Because no one deserves to be thrown away." Lyra's tears fell silently. She covered her face, shaking, but for the first time, her sobs weren't only fear, they were something else. Relief. Before Kane could say more, a faint light flickered between the scrap piles. Red beams sweeping across the shadows. The hunters were close. Scanning the ground, Kane raised his rifle. Motioning for Lyra to stay down, his eyes locked on the figures moving through the junk. His heart pounded. His mind replayed her words again and again. A living weapon, but one who chose peace. He whispered under his breath, "If they want her, they'll have to go through me first." The night grew colder, the shadows deeper, and the hunt was only beginning. The night was quiet in the scrap dump. Too quiet, like the silence before a storm. Marcus sat inside his small workshop, the dim light of a single lamp flickering across the walls. Lyra was lying on a thin mattress, pretending to sleep, but Marcus knew she was not asleep. Her silver eyes kept opening, scanning the dark corners of the room like a hunter afraid of being hunted. For days, something strange had been happening. Marcus felt it first, the strange buzzing in the air, the way shadows seemed to move when no one was near. He thought it was only his tired mind, but then Lyra started to hear it too. "Marcus," she whispered one night, her voice trembling. "Someone is watching us." Marcus frowned, tightening the grip on the wrench in his hand. He didn't laugh at her words, because deep down, he had felt the same. That night, the sound came again, a low hum, like a machine waking up after years of sleep. Lyra sat up suddenly, her ears twitching, her silver hair glowing faintly in the lamp's light. "They are here," she whispered, her voice heavy with fear. Marcus stood and looked out through the cracks in the workshop walls. At first, there was nothing, only the dark sea of junk. Then movement. A shadow darted between the heaps of broken ships, fast, too fast to be human. Marcus's heart began to pound. He turned back to Lyra, who was already clutching the edge of the mattress, her nails digging deep. "Tell me the truth," Marcus said quietly. "Who are you really, Lyra?" Lyra froze, her lips trembling as if she wanted to speak, but couldn't. Finally, her voice cracked like thin glass. "I wasn't just thrown away here," she whispered. "I was hunted, Marcus. I was running, and they almost caught me. But I hid in the dump. They left me here, hoping I would die." Marcus felt the weight of her words crash against him like a wave. Hunted, left to die. That was no accident. Someone powerful wanted her gone. "Who?" Marcus asked firmly. "Who is after you?" Before she could answer, the noise grew louder. A metallic claw scraped against the side of the workshop. Then another, heavy footsteps followed. Shaking the rusted ground, Lyra's face went pale. "They found me," she whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Marcus grabbed his old rifle from the wall, the one he hadn't touched in years. He loaded it with trembling hands. Every click echoing like thunder in the quiet room. The door rattled violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Marcus raised the rifle, pointing it straight at the door. His breath was sharp, his finger ready. "Stay behind me," he growled. But Lyra did not hide. She stepped forward, her silver eyes glowing brighter, brighter than he had ever seen. For the first time, Marcus saw not a frightened girl, but something else, something dangerous, something powerful. The door cracked open. A tall shadow entered. Its body was covered in black armor, its face hidden behind a mask with glowing red eyes. It spoke in a deep, cold voice. "Return the girl, human, and live," Lyra hissed, her voice shaking with anger, not fear. "Never." The air grew heavy, filled with tension so sharp it felt like a blade against Marcus's throat. Marcus didn't wait. He pulled the trigger. The blast lit up the room. The armored figure staggered, but did not fall. It turned its head slowly, like a beast that had just been bitten by a mosquito. Marcus's stomach dropped. This was no ordinary hunter. The figure stepped forward, raising its clawed hand. The ground trembled under its weight. Marcus felt his grip on the rifle weaken. But before the monster could strike, Lyra screamed. Her voice was not human. It was sharp, piercing, filled with energy that shook the walls. The lights flickered. The armored figure froze. As if invisible chains held it still, Marcus stared in shock. Lyra's eyes burned like silver fire. Her body glowed faintly, like a living star trapped in human form. The figure let out a mechanical growl, then staggered back, retreating into the shadows. The sound of heavy footsteps faded into the night. The silence that followed was thick. Marcus lowered his rifle slowly. Still breathing hard, he turned to Lyra, who collapsed onto the floor, weak and trembling. "What was that?" Marcus whispered, his voice shaking. "What are you?" Tears rolled down Lyra's face. "I didn't want you to see me like this," she said softly. "But now—" "You know?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. Fear and confusion warred inside him. But one thing was certain. Whatever Lyra truly was, whoever hunted her, his life was no longer his own. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt the old fire of survival burn in his chest again. The scrap dump was no longer just his cage. It had become a battlefield. The morning after the attack was cold and gray. A thin mist rolled across the scrap dump, curling between the heaps of broken ships like ghostly fingers. Marcus had not slept. His rifle rested on the table, his hands still shaking from the night before. Every sound outside made his heart pound harder. Lyra sat across from him, pale and weak. Her silver eyes no longer glowed. Instead, they were dim, filled with guilt and fear. Marcus kept watching her, waiting for answers. His voice was rough when he finally spoke. "You need to tell me the truth," he said. "No more hiding." Lyra lowered her head, her long silver hair falling across her face. For a moment, she looked like a scared child again. But when she raised her eyes, Marcus saw something different. A secret she had carried for too long. "They call me the last spark," she whispered. Her voice cracked. Heavy with sorrow, Marcus frowned. "The last spark? What does that mean?" Lyra closed her eyes, as if each word was a blade cutting her from inside. "My people? We were not fighters," she said. "We were creators, builders, dreamers. But others hated us for it. They hunted us down, burned our worlds, tore our homes apart. I was just a child when it happened. They killed everyone. My mother, my father, all of them. Only I escaped, only me. That is why they want me dead. Marcus, because I am the last." Her words struck Marcus harder than any weapon. He felt anger boil in his chest. Anger at the faceless monsters who would destroy a people just for existing. He leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. "You mean, you've been alone ever since?" he asked, his voice softer now. Lyra nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Until you found me." Suddenly, the workshop door rattled. Marcus jumped to his feet, rifle in hand. But it was not the armored hunter this time. It was a small drone, no bigger than a crow. It buzzed outside, its red eyes scanning the area. Lyra gasped. "A tracker," Marcus fired, the bullet shattering the drone into sparks. But it was too late. The red eye had already blinked, sending its signal out into the night. "They know where I am," Lyra whispered. Her face pale, Marcus cursed under his breath. He looked around at the mountains of junk. He had lived here for years, hiding from the world. Now it was no longer safe. Not for him, not for her. "We can't stay here," Marcus said firmly. "If they're coming, we move before they arrive." Lyra hesitated, her voice small. "But where can we go?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He didn't know, but he refused to let her die. The two of them packed quickly. Marcus slung his rifle over his shoulder and stuffed scraps of food and tools into a worn bag. Lyra clutched a small piece of metal, a shard of something broken, glowing faintly with silver light. Marcus noticed it and frowned. "What's that?" he asked. Her hands trembled. "It's all I have left of my people. A fragment of the heart core. It carries their memory, their voice, if it falls into the wrong hands." "Everything is lost?" Marcus stared at her in silence. His chest grew heavier. Now he understood why the hunters chased her with such fury. She wasn't just a girl. She was carrying the last soul of an entire people. Before he could reply, the ground shook. A deep metallic roar echoed across the scrap dump. Machines, heavy and fast. Closing in, Marcus pulled Lyra close. "Run," he growled. They slipped through the twisted maze of junk, their footsteps crunching on rusted metal. Behind them, engines roared louder. Beams of red light swept across the piles of debris. Searching, hunting, Lyra stumbled, her body still weak. Marcus caught her and pulled her forward, refusing to let go. But the hunters were fast. Too fast, a shadow loomed ahead. One of the armored figures stepped out from behind a heap of broken ships. Its glowing red eyes locked on Lyra. "Give her to us," it growled, its voice like metal grinding against stone. "Or die?" Marcus raised his rifle without hesitation. His hands no longer shook. He had nothing left to lose. But before he could fire, Lyra stepped forward. Her silver eyes flared bright again. A strange energy rippled from her body. Shaking the air, the armored figure staggered, its claws twitching as if caught in invisible chains. "Go back to your masters," Lyra said, her voice sharp as a blade. "Tell them the last spark still burns," the figure growled. But then a second shadow appeared, taller, broader. Its armor was blacker than night, its eyes blazing red fire. Unlike the others, this one did not falter. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This was no hunter. This was a commander. "Enough games," the commander said in a deep, thunderous voice. "Tonight." A spark dies. The sound of footsteps multiplied. More armored figures surrounded them. Red eyes glowing in the dark. Marcus gripped his rifle tighter. Sweat dripping down his face. He knew this was it. The fight he had been avoiding all his life was here. And he could not run anymore. Lyra reached for his hand, her silver light flickering weakly. "Marcus," she whispered, "if I fall, take the hardcore fragment and run. Promise me." Marcus stared at her, his throat dry. Then he shook his head. "No," he growled, his voice steady. "I don't run. Not anymore. If they want you, they'll have to go through me." The commander raised his claw, and the hunters closed in. The night was about to drown in blood and fire. The circle of armored hunters closed tighter. Red eyes glowed through the mist, their claws glinting under the pale moon. The ground vibrated with every step they took. Marcus felt his chest tighten, his rifle heavy in his grip. Yet his eyes did not leave the towering commander standing across from him. The commander's voice rumbled like thunder. "Step aside, human. This does not concern you." Marcus spat into the dirt. "It concerns me the moment you stepped into my home. It concerns me because she's under my protection." The hunters snarled, their claws scraping against the metal heaps around them. Lyra clutched Marcus's arm, her silver glow flickering weakly. She whispered, "Marcus, you can't fight them all. They're too many." But Marcus shook his head. His voice was low, almost calm. "Maybe so, but I'm done running." The first hunter leapt forward, its claws slicing through the air. Marcus pulled the trigger, the rifle boomed, a bullet smashing into its chest. The hunter collapsed with a metallic scream, sparks bursting from its armor. The rest roared, rushing toward him from every side. Marcus fired again, and again, shells flying. The night lit up with flashes of gunfire. Broken armor scattered across the ground. But for every hunter he dropped, two more appeared from the smoke. Lyra raised her trembling hands, her silver glow spread, forming a shimmering barrier around Marcus. Claws struck it and bounced back with bursts of light. But each strike weakened her. She staggered, coughing. "Lyra!" Marcus shouted, shooting another hunter in the head. "Hold on." She shook her head, sweat running down her pale face. "I can't." Not for long. The commander finally moved. His massive frame cut through the chaos. He lifted a giant blade that hummed with dark energy. With a single swing, he shattered Lyra's glowing barrier. The blast sent Marcus crashing into a pile of scrap. His rifle skidded across the ground, out of reach. "Pathetic," the commander growled, striding toward him. "You think you can defy us? You are nothing but a scavenger clinging to rust." Marcus's vision blurred. His chest ached. His hands scrambled across the dirt, searching. He found a jagged piece of broken steel and clenched it tight. Blood dripped from his palm as he forced himself to stand. "If all I've got is rust," Marcus rasped, "then rust is what's going to cut you." The commander swung. Marcus ducked under the blade, the wind of it nearly tearing his face apart. He stabbed the jagged steel into the gap under the commander's arm. Sparks burst. The giant staggered, but did not fall. Instead, it backhanded Marcus across the ground like a doll. Lyra screamed. Her silver eyes flared brighter than ever before. Her whole body shook with light. The fragment of the heart core in her hand pulsed like a heartbeat. "No more hiding," she whispered, her voice echoing as if others spoke through her. "No more running." Silver flames burst from her body. Swirling into the sky, the hunters froze, their red eyes flickering with fear. The light burned their armor as if it were fire. The commander snarled, stepping forward. "You cannot stop me, Spark. Your kind is dead." Lyra raised her glowing hands. Her voice thundered with power, not her own. "Then hear their voices, for they live in me." The ground trembled. Shards of silver light shot out, piercing hunters left and right. Their screams echoed as their bodies fell to ash. The scrap dump glowed with ghostly silver fire. Marcus crawled to his knees, shielding his eyes from the burning light. For a moment, he thought he saw shapes within the glow. Tall figures, shadows of Lyra's people, their voices whispering in a language he did not understand. Yet he felt their strength pouring into her. The commander roared, swinging his blade at Lyra, but she caught it mid-air with one glowing hand. The blade cracked, dark energy hissing away into nothing. The commander staggered, his red eyes wide. "This is impossible," he growled. Lyra's silver flames wrapped around her body like wings. Her voice shook the night. "You hunted us. You tried to erase us. But the spark cannot be destroyed." She thrust her hand forward. A beam of pure light struck the commander. His armor shattered, his body screaming as it was consumed by silver fire. He fell to his knees, his eyes burning out. The other hunters broke, their courage shattering. They fled into the mist, leaving trails of red sparks behind. The silence that followed was deafening. The scrap dump lay in ruins, twisted metal glowing with the last embers of silver flame. Marcus stumbled to his feet, his body aching. He looked at Lyra, still shining faintly, her chest heaving with exhaustion. She turned to him, her eyes soft again. "Marcus, I didn't mean for you to see this." Marcus shook his head, wiping the blood from his mouth. "Doesn't matter. What I saw was hope." Her glow flickered, almost fading. Marcus caught her as she collapsed into his arms. Her voice was a whisper. "They'll come again stronger. I am their prize." "And their fear." Marcus held her close, his voice firm. "Then let them come, because if you're the last spark, I'll be the fire that protects it." Lyra's silver eyes closed, but a faint smile touched her lips. The heart core fragment pulsed gently in her hand. Its glow spread to Marcus's chest, as if binding them together, and above the ruined dump, the night sky shimmered with faint streaks of silver light, the first sign of something greater awakening. The night after the battle was eerily quiet. The scrap dump lay broken. Metal heaps collapsed and glowing faintly where silver fire had burned. The hunters were gone, but their presence lingered like a shadow. Marcus sat by the fire in his workshop, his body aching. Every breath reminded him of the commander's strike. Yet his eyes never left the girl lying on the cot. Lyra slept, her silver glow dim. The heart core fragment pulsed faintly in her hand. As if breathing with her, Marcus watched it, wondering. It was more than just a shard of crystal. It was alive, and somehow it was watching him. When dawn came, Lyra stirred, her eyes opened slowly, weak but steady. She saw Marcus still sitting there, awake, bruised, but refusing to leave her side. A small smile touched her lips. "You should sleep," she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "I've slept enough for a lifetime, right now. All that matters is keeping you alive." Lyra sat up with effort, clutching the fragment. Her voice carried a weight beyond her years. "Marcus, there's something you must know. What happened last night was only the beginning." She held out the heart core fragment. Its glow brightened, filling the workshop with a silver haze. Images flickered in the air. Burning cities, broken starships, her people falling under waves of hunters. Marcus's chest tightened as he watched entire worlds turn to ash. Lyra's voice trembled. "This fragment is not just memory. It is a beacon, a signal. When I used its power, I called to the galaxy, and now they will come. Not just hunters, not just commanders, the masters themselves." Marcus clenched his fists. "Then let them come. We'll fight them here." We'll make Earth a graveyard for their kind. But Lyra shook her head, her silver hair falling across her pale face. You don't understand? The Masters are beyond anything you've seen. They destroyed my people when we had fleets, armies, weapons you can't imagine. If they arrive here, Earth will burn as mine did. Her words cut through him. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something colder than fear. He saw the faces of his people, the scavengers, traders, workers who lived across the wastelands, the small communities that barely survived. If the Masters came, none of them would stand a chance. Marcus leaned forward, his voice sharp. Then tell me what we do, Lyra. You survived this long for a reason. There has to be a way. Lyra's hands tightened around the fragment. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. There is one way. The heart core can be awakened fully, not just as memory, but as power. With it, I can create a shield strong enough to hide Earth from the Master's sight. They will search, but they will never find it. Marcus frowned. That sounds like a miracle. It is, she whispered. But miracles demand a price. The heart core requires a life. The last spark must burn completely to light it. Marcus froze. His throat went dry. You mean? If you use it, you'll die. She nodded slowly, tears forming in her silver eyes. Yes, if I awaken it, there will be no more Lyra. Only the spark, and then silence. Marcus stood and paced, his fists clenching. He wanted to scream, to break something, anything but accept her words. No, I won't let you do that. You deserve to live. You've fought too hard to die now. Lyra rose weakly to her feet, placing a trembling hand on his chest. Her voice was soft, but steady. Marcus, my life was never mine. I was born running, hiding, watching everyone I loved burn. If I can save another world, even just one, then maybe my people will not be forgotten. Marcus grabbed her shoulders, his voice breaking. And what about me? You think I dragged you out of that dump, fought through blood and fire, just to watch you throw yourself away? I can't lose you, Lyra. I won't. Her silver eyes searched his, shimmering with pain. For a long moment, neither spoke. The heart core pulsed between them, faster, brighter, as if it too waited for a choice. Then, suddenly, the ground shook. The sky above split with a deep red glow. Engines roared, enormous shadows descending through the clouds. Marcus rushed outside, his heart dropping. 3 massive ships hung in the air, darker than night. Their red lights burned like scars across the morning sky. Lyra stepped beside him, her face pale. They came faster than I thought. Marcus's rifle felt like a toy in his hands compared to those ships. He turned to her, his voice shaking. We run. We find a way. We don't give up. But Lyra was already holding the fragment with both hands. Its glow grew so bright it burned his eyes. She whispered, I'm sorry, Marcus. This is the only way. Marcus grabbed her arm, desperate. No. Don't you dare leave me. She looked at him one last time, her tears shining like silver stars. You gave me something no one else ever did. A home, a reason to smile. I will carry that with me. Always. The fragment exploded with light. A pillar of silver fire shot into the sky, striking the descending ships. The red glow shattered. The ships twisted, roared, and then vanished like smoke in the wind. The entire sky turned silver, wrapping Earth in a shimmering shield. Marcus fell to his knees, blinded by the brilliance. He reached for Lyra, calling her name, but when the light faded, she was gone. Only the heart core fragment remained, cracked and silent, resting in his hands. Marcus's breath broke. His chest heaved. For the first time in years, he let himself weep. The girl he had saved from the scrap dump, the girl who had become his family, his friend, his heart, was gone. But when he looked at the fragment, he felt warmth, faint but real, as if her voice still lingered inside, whispering, I am not gone, Marcus. I am with you. The scrap dump was silent again, yet Marcus stood taller than ever before. He strapped the fragment to his chest, his eyes burning with new fire. They think the spark is dead, he muttered, gripping his rifle. But they're wrong, because as long as I'm breathing, it burns. And in the distance, under the shielded sky, the galaxy stirred. For whispers of the last spark had already begun to spread, and the war was far from over.